On today's Soundiron Session, we're going to be breaking down an animated adventure orchestral cue, so stick around. Hello again and welcome back. This is Craig here from Soundiron, and in today's Soundiron Session, we're going to be breaking down a track that I wrote using our Hyperion strings ensemble, and I wanted to showcase a lot of the other exciting types of articulations like runs, trills, and things like that. So for this cue, it was heavily inspired by a lot of the music you hear in animation type movies, so a lot of starts and stops, runs, and very whimsical, and just really trying to be fun and adventurous with it. So let's check out the track and then we'll start breaking down how I utilized Hyperion Strings Ensemble and some other libraries to create this cue. So let's check it out. All right, so that's the cue, so let's go ahead and start breaking it down. So with this, I wanted to start off using some trills. This is inspired by some scores I've heard, like Gamba from Benjamin Wallfish. It's a score you don't really hear people talk about. I don't really see a lot of people talk about it, but it's one of my favorite scores, and I just love how he utilizes the orchestra to create a lot of excitement and just really capture that adventurous sound. So I wanted to start off with these major second trills, and when you play them with the different sections of the orchestra, I wanted them to have to where they kind of come in at different times, so you sort of hear this building of anticipation. So that's how I started off. So I'm going to select these three right here, and we'll just solo the strings. So let's check this out. And to add some more movement during this section, I bring in our Elysium harp, just kind of doing a bunch of random kind of glisses. And this is just to add some movement and a little bit more excitement, since these trills are more kind of padded and really just sort of capturing that anticipation of what's coming next. And the harp is just really handling a lot of the movement for this. And then I also have the cellos doing some tremolos, so we can hear that. So I didn't want the cellos doing major second trills. I wanted to have them doing something else to help with that anticipation. So if we hear those together, I'm going to mute the harp so you can hear just the strings. And then I just have the basses playing a legato note just to hold down the low end and just kind of fill in the orchestra a little bit. As you hear each section come in, if I just check these out, you'll see that it starts off with the violas, and then you have some second violins, and then first violin. So let's hear this. I'm gonna solo these guys. And then I'm just riding the mod wheel just to kind of, swell in to aid to that sort of anticipation. And then coming into measure 12 is when we have these runs. And Hyperion Strings Ensemble not only has just the typical articulations that you would expect from a chamber string orchestra, but it also has some really cool runs and some different effect type articulations and the trills like you just heard. So let's hear that. I'm going to solo the strings again. So right there, you'll hear it does this run into this minor second trill, and that's just a matter of blending in some different articulations. So I wanted to have that run, so it kind of, you know, because normally those runs, they just end. So if we were to listen to just the runs themselves, sounds like this. So just runs and ends. But when you combine that with the minor second trill, it sounds like this. And that's a really great way of adding some excitement to the strings by just having some runs, combining articulations to really try and craft a performance that sounds like it could be played from an orchestra. So now I'm going to let it keep playing after the run so you can hear what else is going on with the strings. So let's go ahead and solo all these and check it out. I'm going to bring the harps back in as well. So I think that's a good place to stop. So you can hear there's a lot of stuff going on. So right here we bring in some string shorts. So we have some spiccato tights and some viola tights. And this is just really kind of adding that driving motion to the track. With this, the way I orchestrated it, I tried to have a lot of push and play with the different sections. So as certain players are maybe doing these kind of short just motion things, I might have the brass sort of starting to play the melody. So now we can start bringing in the brass so we can hear how those are playing together. So this is also using our Hyperion brass elements, and that has a lot of really cool articulations like expressions. So what you just heard was this little cluster that I had played, and it's just doing this kind of sforzando to where it plays. And those types of articulations are great as little transitions to go into the next section. So if we hear this together with the tenor trombone, love the sound of that brass, has a lot of bite to it. So continuing on, let's go ahead and hear how this sounds with the brass and the strings. We got that drive. So you can hear the brass is starting to introduce this little motif. There's not really a theme in this, but there is definitely a little repeated motif that you'll hear bouncing around the orchestra, that little boom, 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 boom. I really wanted to try and keep it playful, not really chromatic, but just have this sort of kind of what you hear in a lot of more animated adventure stuff, or at least stuff that has caught my ear. And you can hear there's this little minor second trill. I try to use a lot of those trills to sort of use as transitions into the next section. So you can hear after it's playing this little melody. So those types of articulations are great for just really keeping things moving. So I wanted to utilize that and really just keep the orchestra busy. You know, it's not a real orchestra, but if it was, I wanted to keep them busy, you know, really make it fun. So after this little minor second trill, for this part, I have the violins kind of playing on the upbeats a little bit, and the low strings and the low brass are doing that boom, 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 boom. So for this, you'd have that C minor chord, but then the low strings and brass are just kind of playing off the 1, the 5, and the flat 6, and then back. And then we also have some woodwinds as well. This is using the Symphony series woodwinds that we did in collaboration with Native Instruments. So let's add some woodwinds now. And all I'm really using is some little staccatos for runs and some little flourish longs, some more effect type articulations, just to kind of add a little bit to that fun, whimsical feel. So let's listen to that. Little trilly thing. So if I play just the woodwinds, let's check that out. So it's just like these little kind of effecty runs in the background just to keep it lighthearted and that sort of thing. So let's listen to that. I'm going to mute the percussion and the choir for now. There's no choir here. Actually, we don't need to worry about that. So let's just listen to this. So during when that minor second trill is coming in, I'm bringing in a little woodwind flourish long just to sort of act as in the same way as more of a busy, kind of fun transition into the next part. So let's go ahead and keep listening. I'm going to go ahead and bring the percussion into, why not? So utilizing these more expressive articulations is a great way to add motion for these transitions because it's very different than just trying to play a sustain and then ride the mod wheel, because when the sforzando is playing, has that really sharp attack, dies down, and then swoops right into the next part. So utilize those expressions because they're a great way to add realism to your orchestral mock-ups. And with this track, I really wanted to have that sound as if I was scoring an animated picture. You can hear there's a lot of starts and stops. So if you were watching it, maybe there's, they're racing around. I named the track The Rat Race, go figure. So really trying to keep in mind how it would sound as if I was watching this to picture, and you might see them running and then like they stop and then someone else sees someone and then they're like running, or just trying to kind of like imagine this whole scenario. So I wanted the music to almost sound like if it was scored to that, in that kind of, as you hear, maybe that Mickey Mouse type way. So let's go ahead and skip up a little bit. I'm gonna skip up here. So you can hear where it kind of dies down, and I'm using some of those kind of effect articulations. Some of these are from Symphony series brass. Some of these harmon mutes, or these little horse trills where you can hear it kind of gets a little crazy on the trumpets. So with those harmon mutes, it just, when I hear this type of score, I really want to incorporate some harmon mutes because it has that very typical sound that you hear in these types of cues, and it almost kind of sounds like it goes into like a noir kind of style. But yeah, I just thought that was fun. So because with that horse trill, it really adds that sort of excitement right before everything kind of drops down. So let's check that out. I got this horns decrescendo right here. And with this type of cue, I had to bring in some pizzicatos because you always hear that type of thing in more animated types of cues where maybe the character is kind of sneaking around and that sort of thing, but also utilizing that little motif that you've heard earlier with the brass. So with this part, I wanted to have each section kind of play off of that. So you hear dum bum 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 bum. So it's kind of like they're just kind of hot potatoing the little motif. So I thought that would be fun. And then you can hear I'm bringing in some of those harmon mutes again. And then there's some more brass and little woodwind. So for this woodwind section, I wanted to keep it just more chordal and just sort of in the background. So let's check that out. Very more just in the background. Then let's hear what the brass is doing on top of that. So right here at measure 39 is an example of how I like to combine articulation. So you hear that it starts off with this decrescendo low and then comes in with that decrescendo high. The little cluster. So sometimes you don't always have to use just one type of expression. Combining them and really kind of shaping it to the way that your track is a really useful way of achieving that type of sound. Then just kind of ends, stops, and it's all over. So let's have a listen to everything right here. then a little choir on the end. So the choir that I'm using is our Requiem Light Marcato, and then I also have some Venus Oz just in the beginning, more just as a layer. So we can hear that just by itself. Just playing a single note, so let's listen to this part without the choir. Little horn melody right there. So with the choir. So it's just more for orchestral texture. It's not really to be in the forefront. And then we also have some percussion going on as well. So let's listen to just the percussion. Just doing these cymbals, swells. This is from our Apocalypse Percussion Ensemble. And that right there is just like a little accent just to kind of start the piece off. So if we go, we'll start right here. And using cymbals as accents is a great way to really emphasize certain parts of your cue. So let's skip up here a little bit so we can hear some of the other percussion. Let's check this out. I'm going to solo this. So just some ride rolls, some little high percussion. So all the cymbals are doing here is just really adding to that sort of very low suspense. And you can hear how this is working with the woodwinds. That little ride roll. Bassoons in the back. And you can hear that little bit of choir in the end. That's from our Requiem Light Symphonic choir. And just using a little touch of the marcatos just to sort of end the whole track with a little bit of emphasis. So let's listen to that all together. So for Hyperion Strings Ensemble, we recorded a lot of different speeds for the shorts, and we have some really tight spiccatos, and these are great for doing that sort of measured tremolo type of sound where you really want it to be on the nose, super fast and super articulated. So right here, I want to show you how that sounds in isolation. So let's check this out. And this is going into a run. So let's listen to that. I'm gonna turn on the runs and let's hear how this sounds. So you can hear it's playing this really fast measured tremolo into a run, and I wanted to use that just to really have that excitement before it goes into the next part. So let's listen to all the strings doing this part. To some tremolos. And then during this part, I had the cellos and the basses just kind of playing off of that, so you can hear that. Let's hear the spiccato loose. And loose has a very nice sound to it. It's a little bit slower than the tight. And I also have the basses playing with this too, so let's hear that together. And I just love the sound of that. And then over here we have some cello pizzicatos. Let's listen to this. So you can hear this is another use of the expressions for the strings. I have the cellos and the basses doing a sforzando. Let's solo those. So we have the basses sforzando and the cello. Let's listen to that. Let's skip up here. And then they're playing a little Bartok at the end just to sort of emphasize that ending. And then all together. And Alright, so that's about it for the Soundiron session. I hope you enjoyed this video, and this track was a ton of fun to write. I really hope it gives you an idea of some of the things that you can do with Hyperion Strings Ensemble. So if you want to learn more about Hyperion Strings Ensemble or any of the other libraries of ours that I use in this cue, make sure to go to soundiron.com. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, we'll see you in the next one. Take care.